Super awkward Funcast. You're listening to the Super Awkward Funcast. Yeah. Well, here we are again. Somehow we've survived the apocalypse. And I'm here with my guest for the new episode of the favorite show of yours, I'm sure, which is Super Awkward Funcast. Yay! Here's my friend Betsy.
Hello.
Here for the whole hour and a half.
I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be a big one.
It is.
So, you guys might have heard about a little thing called COVID-19. I mean, I've been bitching about it for a long time now on the podcast. So we're going to get into it about what would you say is the main issue that we're going to discuss today? Because you have some things to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we should really talk. We should talk about the medical profession, the medical field. I think that's a big thing. Privacy. We could probably talk about internet privacy. It's a big thing. But yeah, weeks ago I had been talking to you about some of my experiences with the medical profession, especially in the last few months, and I've got enough stories to fill an hour and a half. But I also, I have a cool project to talk to you about as well, which we've talked about a little bit. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And of course, you're always keeping up with current events better than I am, so you can probably fill me in a little on this hour and a half of some things I know about the terrible death of Eddie Van Halen, which I don't believe is COVID related, but very sad. He was very young.
It's probably still COVID related. It'll turn out that it was the whole time.
Well, I guess we're all related, right? We're all interconnected. So
well, that's how they tie things together. They want it to be, ever present.
And when you say they, for people who are joining us for the first
Yes.
time, are you speaking about the deep state?
Perhaps. I mean, it depends on. Well, I know they take orders. The healthcare administrators in the hospitals do take orders from above. Probably part of the pharmaceutical industrial complex is what I would think. People possibly related to Bill Gates, possibly not. I don't know. But people who take orders from someone else who is above them. So it's like one person doing this for the other person who's doing this for the other person. And that's pretty much how the world works, I believe.
Right. Well, we have the CDC and the WHO, which...
all the three letter acronyms.
NIH. NIH is one, I suppose, these days.
Yeah.
And then I
and
guess...
they're involved in gene editing and stuff like that.
Yes.
CRISPR was in the news today.
Yes.
I don't want to get too far into CRISPR. We've talked about it before a little bit. But, yeah, they won a Nobel Prize. And that's not by accident. That was on purpose.
My dad and I was talking to him about Francis Collins, who is at the National Institutes of Health, and who is a really interesting person who's been very involved in gene sequencing and many things that I think are really positive. So I'm not going to be just bashing the medical profession in this podcast by any means.
And that's not what we're here to do.
And that's not what we're here to do. We're really here to just talk about what's going on and try to stay aware ourselves of what's going on, and then maybe help inform some other people what might be going on around the country. Probably USA is probably most of what we can handle discussing, but of course there's global problem.
It is, yeah. It's a pandemic, so it affects everyone about 1% of the time. So, then we have like the millions of recoveries that nobody wants to talk about and how that happened and what kind of treatments were used and all of this. And then we have the antibody cocktail from the president, who just so happened to catch COVID at the best possible moment of the October surprise that we're supposed to have.
Or worst possible moment, depending. I mean, I've never seen so many people so happy that someone was ill.
Oh, for sure.
And I it's not that I don't understand their feelings about it, but it's, these things that make me want to get off of Facebook. There are many things that want me to get off Facebook, but this is the time when I'm unfollowing people more than ever before. It's like, I don't even care if it's not, even if I agree with you about some of the stuff you're saying, I'm unfollowing people more than ever before right now. And it's only to try to keep a more peaceful and joyful
There's a lot of obsession on social media, just obsession with certain topics. And I found myself being victim to that kind of mentality of like, oh, I'm right about this, and I want to say this, and I want people to agree with me. But like, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if you get likes or retweets. It doesn't make a difference in your life or anyone else's life. These hashtags literally don't matter. Like hashtags don't matter. So like,
well, I guess it depends on what your goal is.
Yeah.
I mean,
awareness is great, but like if you're like inundating somebody's timeline with information, and it's like overwhelming information.
Right.
I mean, if you're not a journalist and you're doing it just for the kicks, then it's like you can do better things with your time than reach out to people on the internet who may or may not care what you're talking about, but you're just screaming into the void.
Right.
So I found it's better for me as a comical person, which I tend to be, to take the piss sometimes and just, make jokes and make light of situations that wouldn't be so light otherwise, because you got to keep laughing to keep from crying and dying, because it does get very overwhelming and scary because you're powerless. And that's the thing, when you know that you don't have the power to do anything.
Well, since you say that, I think it's not true that we're powerless. I think that we feel powerless, and I think it's really interesting that is the zeitgeist, if I'm using that word properly.
Zeitgeist.
Thank you. Of course I'm not. Yes. Thank you. My German is not perfect.
I know a little.
Right. Zeitgeist. The zeitgeist. Is that, you can do nothing, you are powerless. And I remember I started feeling that way when I was watching way too much TV. That, after a while, characters in a scripted show were no different from people on the news who were dying. It was all a bunch of, not faceless, but victims whose names I would never remember, and who, I could feel sorry for, but only in this very, very distant way. And if you were like drowning yourself in that stuff without human connection of your own, and if you aren't seeing people face to face, and you aren't giving anyone a hug, and you don't have a cat or a plant or anything to care for, I really started to feel myself losing some of my own humanity.
Yeah.
You really, after a while...
And that's the point. That's ultimately the point of social media, I believe, is to make us disconnected from each other, ironically. Make us feel like we're connected, but we're actually disconnected from reality.
Yes. Well, I mean, and it's a tool. I think that technology, I have been very tempted since the advent of the internet in my own life. When I started using email and computer in 6th grade, I love it and hate it because you can correspond with people very quickly. You can correspond with people around the world very quickly, and that's beautiful, and you learn things. And so I'm tempted to call it evil, but by itself it's not. It's only when it's being elevated to a position in your life where it doesn't belong.
It's like everything. There's a yin and a yang. There's a balance. There's evil, there's good in everything. Or not evil necessarily, but like bad parts of things. Like that's part of life, is that every situation you can see the pros and the cons of what's going on. Right. So looking at it that way, like the thing about it can be like that people get so wrapped up in it that they don't know what's really happening. Like in nature, like throughout nature, like you don't go outside. You're just in there clicking and scrolling and seeing all kinds of points of view, which, by the way, could be bots. Like you don't know if these are actual people that you're conversing with on a daily, I see these people. This is just one example, but like when the president tweets something, for example, there's these people on here who constantly must follow him, but they constantly respond to him every tweet. It's very disturbing. And you wonder if they get paid to do that, because why else would you waste your life just subtweeting a president over and over again, like every time he tweets? Like, that's a lot.
Right.
And you can all, the funny thing was, like, after his diagnosis, or not diagnosis, but he was saying that he had COVID. Under the tweet, there were all these weird ass satanic messages and stuff in this weird language I can't pronounce, but everybody was like, cool it with the satanic messages and stuff. But it was like, for once I could have been like, okay, if I saw this person, Mrs. Krasenstein, for example, I would be like, phew. It would be the first time I'd be like, phew, I finally I'm actually excited to see her because she's not a satanic weird ass post. But like, it would just be a refreshing to see her again. Because I was like, that's the new normal. That's the bar, is like these weirdos who subtweet the president, who are married to grifters, like who aren't allowed on Twitter, by the way. Hilarious. But they got kicked off because of like grifting and shit. So like, and then I'm also wondering which one she's married to, because she says she's married to one of the brothers, but I'm like, which one? Like, not that it matters, but like
well, and I mean, that's the kind of thing where, we've got these people tweeting as if they're celebrities.
They're celebrity tweeters. Like, they get famous for tweeting people.
That's their whole game now. And now
what would they do without him? That's the thing. Like, they need him. They need a nemesis.
Yeah. Well, yes. And I think because you mentioned satanic things, and we're in the month of October, we've got this new, which is like, I love every month for different reasons, but I don't love Halloween, and I never have, and that's because to me it was always associated with satanic rituals, and I'm not a fan of anything like that. So, but I do think that there is anytime that you see a spirit of fear descending on people, and anything, like you said, that makes us, feel less than human, I think we need to be reminded that what you believe about yourself is very important. So if you believe that you are powerless, there's an exercise that we did at a sort of a seminar that I was at a year or two ago. If you say to yourself that you're powerless, you can actually, and then you tell yourself that you're powerful, there's actually a difference in the strength of your arms right after you say those things, what you're able to do. And it was demonstrated to me in front of a group of people. We could try it later if you want after this podcast. Nobody can see us, but maybe we should make a video later. So there's a real, what you say about yourself and how you feel is extremely important in terms of what you can accomplish. And as far as journalism is concerned, you need to make sure that you are listening to trusted sources, which brings us back to the medical profession, because the medical profession has enjoyed a very high level of trust for a very long time in our country. I think far too much trust. But it seems to me that the medical profession is actually profoundly divided over COVID.
Yes.
And there are many voices trying to speak via YouTube, videos and all kinds of media, trying to get the word out about how they've treated COVID or how they've been prevented from treating COVID.
And they've been stifled by these organizations.
And the thing is, because I am not a medical professional.
Neither am I. None of us purport to know what exactly is going on.
Right. But I was about to go into nursing about 14 years ago. I took anatomy. I dissected a cat. I took, I know. I didn't want to dissect a cat. The first time I had the opportunity in high school, I passed it up. Okay, I quit advanced biology and only did one semester. I did not want to dissect a cat. But then I had to take anatomy. That was part of the class. I know. Don't get me started. I'm sorry.
I'm not judging.
Subject.
I'm just sad.
I know it's sad, but I think that the cat had died of natural causes. I can't be certain. Okay.
Yeah. Just like the frogs, they just died.
Well, there are so many things being done in the name of science.
Exactly.
That are extremely questionable.
Unethical.
Right.
with human beings as well,
with
like
human beings as well.
electric shock therapy things, and trying to change people's sexual orientation, and using pedophiles and
separating
studies.
triplets. As if you saw, did you see Three Identical Strangers?
No.
If you get a chance to see that documentary, it's about, I've sort of spoiled it already, but it's about triplets that were separated by this really bizarre adoption agency in New York who wanted to study what happens if you give people with identical DNA to different families in different social classes. Oh yeah. Well, then these kids in college, they get to be in community college. Two of them ended up going to the same community college, but not at the same time. So one of them shows up for class, and their friends are all like, "Hey, Joe," and he's like, "I'm not Joe." Then those two get in the newspaper, and the third one finds out. So they all find each other later in life, and the results. I mean, at first they enjoyed some fame and fortune, and they opened a restaurant together. I'm sorry, you need to...
Like Wahlburgers.
Yeah, exactly like that. That was their thing. It was earlier, it was in the 70s, I think maybe mid-70s or late 70s, early 80s. But one of those triplets died by suicide.
Yikes.
And, I don't know if it was just because of, I don't know what it was, all the factors were. But, I mean, they went through something that they should never have gone through.
I feel like they have a different connection than anyone else. Like, you can't separate people who were so close in the womb, right, without having any kind of
and in fact, that was mentioned. It was mentioned that early on, at least one of those triplets seemed to be suffering from some kind of separation anxiety early in life. Yeah. That he was like, hitting his own head against the wall and crying. He missed his brothers, but of course he couldn't communicate that, and then he didn't remember. So human behavior can be influenced, right? We're very social creatures. So when we look on social media, we're very influenced by what we read right now and by what we see. And that's part of the reason that I'm still on Facebook, is because I am still traveling. I am, I am wearing a mask at times. I'm not here to cause trouble wherever I go. But I'm not going to let anything stand in the way of what I believe that I should be doing. And that is my own personal conscience, right? And yeah. I think when the medical profession, we used to honor people's individual consciences.
Yes.
Right? So maybe you can riff on that for a little bit. I'm thinking that there's more stuff that we're going to start talking about that we haven't even scratched the surface
yeah.
of. But
oh my gosh.
I mean, so when I watch episodes, for example, or there are whole movies made about this. When someone has like a religious objection, for example, they don't want to have a blood transfusion because they don't believe that they should accept the blood of other people. Or, they don't want to take certain pills. They don't want to interfere with certain aspects of their body.
We used to have, like, the ability to say no. Like, we don't want... People who are against all of these restrictions don't want to be told what to do with our own bodies. That's what it basically comes down to. Our body, our choice. If that applies, I mean, as much as you want to like get upset about like the false equivalency or whatever, but it's not really, because you're saying that a woman can decide what she's going to do with her own body between her doctor and herself. We want to have that option between our doctors and ourselves.
Absolutely.
About what we're going to do with our bodies, and if we're going to take a vaccine or if we're going to not take a vaccine, and if we're going to build up our immune system and actually fight this the natural way and figure out how to minimize contact without ruining our lives, like totally upending our lives, which is what we didn't have the chance to do because our holier than thou government, state and local, decided to just shut everything down. And then the federal government can be like, hey, but we didn't do it. But yeah, it's going to be like that with the vaccine, because they'll say, oh, it's going to be on the state and local level. And then the state and local level is going to be like, well, we have all this power. We're going to keep keep grabbing all these rights and stuff from these people. So
Right.
let's mandatory vaccines, everybody. If you want to go back to work, you got to get a vaccine. If you want to go to the airport, you got to get a vaccine. That's how it's going to be. They're already talking about mandatory testing at airports whenever you go somewhere. So obviously that's already been in place, the testing. So the testing, it's like masks first, and testing, then the vaccine. And then that doesn't even change anything because you still have to wear the mask. So it's just the new abnormal.
Right. Well, and this kind of...
And biometrics,
this
obviously.
kind of new mantra of, like, if you love other people and if you care about other people, you will fall in line.
That's how they do the Big Brother thing, the 1984, like getting you to turn in the people that are also being oppressed. But you don't realize that you are the oppressor at that point, not the person helping the other person, because you are literally taking on the job of the Big Brother government.
Right. Well, we as a country,
for no money. It's just hilarious.
According to our founding documents, there are certain inalienable rights that we are endowed with from our Creator. That is part of the documents.
Whoever that is.
Whoever our Creator is, He endowed us with certain...
Or she.
So what are they? Health, happiness, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right?
Eventually, but like property at first because of slavery. But
health is not included. I said that, but it's not true. Health is not included.
Yeah, health is not an inalienable right, according to the law.
We're not promised by our Creator or by the law that we will be in perfect health our entire lives, because
that's a good thing to bring up. Like a good point.
Right? But that doesn't mean that I don't think that there
obviously
is such a thing.
I mean, yeah.
Right.
But if we're looking at the Constitution, which people so devoutly worship,
right.
you know.
We claim to. I mean, we claim to still want to honor the Constitution and still honor one another. But I'm not sensing that from a lot of my fellow citizens.
No.
They don't want to honor one another. They want other people.
They want to attack each other.
Well, and they want to believe what they're being told.
It's
That's
a cult.
What's really sad.
That's what it is.
They want to believe what they're being told. And because the opposite seems to be taking on individual responsibility for assuming risks.
Yes.
And that we're scared to be seen. I mean, I am well aware that now that I've been in LA for a week, some of my friends might not want to meet up right now. And that is okay, because I have been traveling a lot and I have seen people, and I am probably seeing more people than a lot of people are. So if that's a problem and you have, any reason to not want to meet up right now, I'm not going to try to talk you into it, right? Because we're friends and I care about you, and for whatever reason that you have, it's not worth having an argument about, because then obviously right now is not the right time. That's what friendship is about, right?
Yeah.
And the same is true for family members too. I'm not married, I don't have kids, so the conversations are much more complicated if you are, raising small children.
And there are children that I have seen on social media with these masks on, and that disturbs me so much. Newborns. Like, that's insane. That's really, not right.
It really does. I mean, there have been a few times when I really felt like, oh man, I cannot wear this mask right now. I can't breathe. And not because not just because it obviously does inhibit breathing, but, thank you. She gave me a cushion. Not only does it inhibit breathing, and if I'm working hard, if I'm walking and I have my heart rate up, I was trying to book it through the Dallas airport between planes, and I was like, oh no, if I don't take my mask off, I'm going to really have problems breathing here in a second. So I can imagine when you're putting a child through that at a young age, if you're really, it really seems that their oxygen levels are not the same. And I don't have a meter, so I'm not measuring these things myself, but it's common sense that you're recirculating a lot of your own carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
So Yeah, for the first time, when I was in Montana, we drove past a school where there were little kids outside playing together, but they were all wearing masks.
Ugh.
Yeah,
I saw like an 8-year-old yesterday, like while walking, like last night. It just disturbs me so much.
And I'm hearing now that children are carriers. This is something I heard from someone who read it somewhere, that children are actually, much bigger carriers than we thought and than we know. They're not coming down with it, but they're bringing it home. And so, I don't know what to do with this except to say it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for us to be so suspicious that we one another are all carrying something that could kill us. It is just so
1% of the time.
Yes, 1% of the time
it could kill us.
If you came down with it, which is we don't know what percentage of the time that's happening,
and we don't even know the actual numbers because the PCR tests are so unreliable that are being used and flouted as something that's supposed to show the case rate. We don't know what the case rate is. We don't know if it's high or low. We don't know.
Right. And so since you mentioned that, I will say one of my friends reposted a Fox News breakdown of numbers of the percentages. Mm-hmm. And because I did not want to create a hailstorm for myself on Facebook, I only posted it on Instagram. And I did cut off the fact that it was from Fox News because they were CDC numbers. It said CDC, and I know most people hate Fox. I know some of the listeners today don't all hate Fox because my dad said that he was going to repost this, and I think that he has a lot of Fox fans. I'm not a fan of Fox News. I think that, they're as hysterical as anybody else is right now. They just have a different way of doing it. But anytime you're actually trying to work with the math and the numbers in a way that the common person can understand, that is journalism. Yes. That is real journalism. And that the CDC is still considered to be a trusted source. We don't have anything better really right now, so we have to go with the numbers that they're reporting, even though there's many, many reports that it's being over-reported to start with to the CDC, and that the CDC is encouraging people to report things as COVID deaths that are not COVID deaths.
As Dr. Birx said in the very beginning with the coronavirus task force, that was what the initiative was, to report as many things as COVID related as possible. Hell, friggin' George Floyd had COVID, for fuck's sake. Like, they put those two together, those two initiatives. It's crazy. And then, it's comorbidities. Nobody talks about the real reason, not because of Trump, not because of the government necessarily. I mean, obviously they're ultimately involved, but the reason that the U.S. was so attacked by this virus is because we are an unhealthy population. We have the most unhealthy people in the world because we've been sold all these supersized meals, all these, fast food, all this like GMO shit. Like we're poisoned on a daily basis. So of course we are going to be the most obese nation, the most unhealthy nation that will have the most comorbidities. My goodness.
Yeah.
More than anyone else.
Yes.
And that's why we're number one.
Yeah. That's why, what my pastor was saying early on is, she said, stay away from sugar, get outside. Yes. Eat fruits and vegetables, think about, I like to take ginger, drink, I have like this ginger drink that I mix up now, or, I have Zicam that I will take occasionally, even if I'm not feeling sick. If I'm just feeling tired, I know that that's when, if I overtire myself, that's when I'm most vulnerable and could catch something, and I don't want even a cold, and I haven't had. So I want to talk about a story that happened to me because we wanted to talk about medical privacy records.
Yes. And very important.
And I'll say that our family has been, we have doctors in my family. We have all kinds of professionals. And, of course, we have all ages of people in my family. And in August, my grandfather, who's 92, put me and my cousin in charge of food for a party for my twin great uncles who were turning 77. And so, we planned it together and we invited the family. And so we had about 12 people. And I would say, half of them are at least over the age of 60. And that was the biggest. Early on, we weren't having any gatherings like that. But now it's August. We've all been okay. No one in the family has gotten sick. Some of us have gotten nervous, and some of us have isolated each other more than others. Mm-hmm. So we have a party. It's really only a few hours that we're all together because they all live different places. Everybody went home, and a few hours later, I started feeling this sore throat come on, and I was scared because, it's pretty common for me to get a sore throat pre-COVID since I was a kid, but this felt a little different. And so because it felt just a little bit different, of course I start going, well, maybe it's the COVID, and then how would, speaking of timing, how great would this timing be if right after I was with my elderly relatives all together in one place, some of my favorite people, then I come down with it, and that means I was already sick. So I start freaking out, and I'm freaking out sort of quietly because I don't want to alarm my relatives unnecessarily. And so I go outside on the deck that night, trying to figure out the best place to have a COVID test. And I hadn't been tested for 3 months because I had been tested once before outside of Walgreens by some company named PWN Health, who promised me results in 24 hours, but I didn't get them for 10 days. And when the 10 days, only happened because I was really actively following up with them and said, I'm starting to freak out and I'm about to move in with my 92-year-old grandfather. And in fact, by that point, I was already there because my grandfather was like, don't worry about it. Just, you're fine. We know you're fine. I was not experiencing any symptoms in May. I was just, out of an abundance of caution, my sister wanted me to get tested before I moved in. So now it's August. I have this sore throat that's kind of weird, and I don't want to go back to that same place for a test. And so I can find some online walk-in clinics, and I just make an appointment with one of them, and it's all online. It's late at night, so I'm not going to be able to get anybody on the phone to do it, so I just make an appointment, and I say, I need a COVID test. So I'm able to get an appointment Monday morning, because the party was on Saturday. So I think it was Monday morning. I get up early and I sort of sneak out of the house because I don't want to tell them where I'm going or what I'm doing. I'm not going to lie about it, I sort of sneak out, and I left them a note, saying that I was going to the grocery store, which is also true. But anyway, I show up at this clinic that immediately they come outside, and say, are you Elizabeth? Well, I'm sorry, but we don't do COVID tests here. We do anything else but that, basically. So if that we tried to call you, and, at that point in August, I was feeling a little bit, concerned about all this privacy stuff. So I didn't give them my cell phone number. I gave them the landline number at my granddad's house. So they didn't reach me when they tried to call me because I had already left. And so then, I explained to them that, all I had was a little sore throat. It was probably no big deal, but I was just concerned. And so they sent me to another place. But what I found at the second place was that even then, if I mentioned the word COVID, if I thought that I had COVID, they were not going to see me. They were only going to let me in to their building if I would say it a different way. So I finally just said, well, look, I haven't had a physical in quite a while, and I have something. It's probably nothing kind of thing. I think if I even said the word sore throat, it was going to throw them, like they were going to keep me outside. And so they finally took me in, and they looked me up. Well, it turned out, because I lived in Portland once for about 6 weeks, 8 years ago, and I wasn't sure if this was the same clinic network that I had been to before. It turned out that, they had a record of me from 8 years ago, so they said, and they sent me in. Well, I started chatting with the nurse or physician's assistant who, did a little swab test on me and was asking him about what they're using to digitize their medical records. And they said they use Epic, which, if you don't know, is a giant medical records software company based in Wisconsin. And I was recruited for a technical writer job there through LinkedIn once. And so I applied. So I kind of know about, they have sort of a Google type campus. Like, it's very, built to appeal to young programmers. You can go in there and never come out all day, the cafeteria and all that kind of stuff, which in Wisconsin, of course, is really nice. It's going to be freaking cold for a good part of the year. And if they had hired me, which I thought I did pretty well on their tests, and I don't know why they didn't. If they had hired me, I would have happily moved to Wisconsin. I mean, I would have been bracing myself for winter, but I would have done that at that time, which was probably, it was like 2014 or something like that. So this company has been growing and growing, and this nurse was telling me that Epic is, everywhere in the U.S., and it's also in the U.K. now. And any hospital or a medical, clinic, any company that is using Epic now, you can find anyone's medical records from anywhere through that company. So anything that's been digitized, say that you were born in Podunk, Minnesota, but then you moved to Los Angeles, they can get all of your records as long as both clinics that you're attending used Epic. So, and it probably is true that, for example, I was raised in Illinois, that my birth records, may or may not have been digitized. They certainly weren't at the time, probably, because I was born in 82. But that doesn't mean that the clinics didn't go back and digitize a lot of things when they could, so that they didn't have to store so much paper. And I don't know. Someone can chime in and tell me, what are all the laws around that? How long do they have to keep all these files before the internet and after the internet? This is an area that a lot of people don't think about, and it sounds very convenient to have all these digital files in one place in the hive mind. But think about when they, we also have databases of DNA and criminal records, right? Mm-hmm. Once we start labeling a person as a criminal, there's only one way that most people think of that person, right? Especially if you happen to work in law enforcement, mm-hmm. You're not thinking about all the good qualities this person has. You're just trying to catch them or figure out what they've done or have not done. Once they've been convicted of something, that record lasts a long time and can only be expunged under certain circumstances. So what happens when you get labeled with another kind of illness, mm-hmm. like a mental illness? How long do those records last? And it used to be that people could start over and move somewhere else and enjoy a certain amount of anonymity for, after having suffered. And after, maybe having suffered some severe brain damage. And, maybe they did some things. I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons. So, we could talk about this forever, right? About the pros and cons of, and people's rights. When do you lose your rights, depending on what you've done? What kind of rights do you lose?
Do we even have rights to begin with?
Well, again, all I can say is that we have the Constitution and we have the Declaration of Independence. We have the preamble to the Constitution.
A piece of paper that can be torn apart whenever
and it very
the
well
deep
may
state
be.
Pleases.
It very well may
for
be.
whatever reason. So what I liken this whole mess to is just Patriot Act 2.0. So we already have the Patriot Act. Everybody's okay with that. All the bipartisans in Congress, whatever. They love the Patriot Act. They continue to support it. Everybody loves it. Not us, but it doesn't matter what we think. So that got rid of habeas corpus. That got rid of, the Fourth Amendment is virtually non-existent now. And, spying on citizens for their own good, for terrorist reasons. But you never caught a terrorist.
And we wanted to give all those rights up after 9/11.
That's partly why 9/11 was executed.
People did, well, yes. I mean, that's definitely a matter of some debate. But airport security, I mean...
Well, it was all planned out in 1994 from Joe Biden. He literally said, and I will put it in here in the show notes, he is on record on C-SPAN, of all places, saying that he basically created the Patriot Act in 1994. He created what would be the framework that they would use in 2000 and whatever it was. But...
So if Joe Biden is happily taking credit for it, then he's only taking credit for it that he was trying to plan against the terrible day when something might happen, right? Just like the people who planned
after the fact, by the way. He was explaining this. I don't think it was 2000 something, but he explained this way after 1994. He explained in an interview that's what he did, that he contributed to the Patriot Act, and he was proud of it, apparently. So he wanted to get rid of terrorists, and it was I think it was in Congress, counterterrorism.
But for those of us who haven't read the Patriot Act, what specifically does it do?
It allows NSA and CIA and all of these other agencies to collect information on citizens that should be private, which is what I'm referring to at the moment, because that's what they're going to do with this initiative that they have in place, which they have already cataloged in lockstep in great detail, that they're going to have biometrics at airports and they're going to get all this information. Everything will be retinal scans and that sort of thing, which is why the masks won't really matter, because they're going to do it through the eyes. That's how they're going to do the facial recognition now. They're already working, several companies are working on it. And there's a good website for you guys to keep track of all of the information that comes out in different countries across the world, which is biometricupdate.com, which is where I go to get the most information, most up-to-date information on what's going on with the biometric agenda, which is part of Agenda 2030, which is a UN agenda, very similar to Agenda 221, but it's the new one where everybody's going to be happy and it's going to be a utopia and we're all going to know everything about everybody and it'll be fine. And social credit
Which it obviously isn't going to be fine.
And antisocial media, like antisocial, like dissent and stuff will be taken care of, and we'll have predictive crime, which is what is already happening in LA, at the LAPD through Palantir, which has a major contract.
We should talk more about that. Please talk more about that. Predictive crime. I mean, it sounds like Minority Report, which
it's biased
a great movie,
too,
by the
which
way.
is great for the Black Lives Matter movement, because it's looking at what people are doing in certain neighborhoods and deciding whether they're going to commit a crime or not, basically on what they look like.
Individuals or groups?
Through an algorithm, not individually. They're looking at people like, different races and stuff, like Latinos and Black people. Like, they're going to be the major
Well, and this is the thing
about,
blessings and curses. What you speak and predict over a person has a profound effect. Even if you're going from reality. I see something about, I hang out around kids once in a while, and you can see the seeds of something, and it really, if they're in a really bad mood and they seem really frustrated all the time, or they seem really unhappy, it's sort of concerning. But that doesn't mean that they're destined to not contribute to society or to do something bad or to not be a positive person. They're just growing up, they're going through things, and they're just learning how to navigate, having emotions, having a brain, having a body, and living in an imperfect world. So
I think what's sad about children
dangerous
nowadays is that they are exposed to the internet too early, and they are also exposed to the environment, which is like, this is the worst environment to be exposed to as a child. Can you imagine, like, You go out and everybody's wearing a mask. Everybody's
Right.
scared of each other.
Right.
There's a pandemic. You were just born. You're like, I don't know what the hell's going on.
Right.
But now this is your life.
Right. Well, as a parent,
no.
you've got to be thinking about what kind of adult you want to grow up, and do you want your kids? I mean, I was brought up fairly sheltered in certain ways. I certainly wasn't.
I was just reminded of that Archangel, whatever, episode of Black Mirror, sorry, where it's like an overprotective mother, and she's got this device, like on an iPad thing, that she gets from the birth of her child, like not from birth, but like 7 years old, and then she uses it into her young adulthood, and then she loses her daughter in the process, and her daughter tries to kill her, so it's like. Spoiler alert, but like,
yeah, no, I don't think. I think I may have seen parts of that episode.
You know, being sheltered is not good because then you don't know what to expect.
Well, but I was gonna say, in many ways, I was taught what to expect. I was taught to expect this kind of a society, and so I was sheltered in a way that I think was in some ways very useful, where I didn't have these expectations that I needed to be like everybody else, because I didn't have that much contact with other kids my age. I didn't spend all day with other kids my age except for my siblings.
You know what? Me too. Like, hashtag me too. But like, I can't use that word anymore. But
I know, right?
Or term.
I know.
They ruined the term. Oh my god.
They did.
And then also the term cuties I can't say anymore because every time I do, I think of that horrible movie. But anyway, like when I was a child, like I would hang out with children who were younger than me, oddly enough, like who were like next door, who were also black. I'm not saying I'm like a big like saint or anything for hanging out with black kids when I was a child, but I'm saying that helps, shape your world if you're with diverse people. And I was with Navajo natives, at school who were like exchange students of some sort. I'm not really sure where they came from, but probably a reservation, I would imagine. But anyway, I don't know. But I was exposed to many different cultures early on.
That's awesome.
As a child.
That's awesome.
And different ages. And I had different friends who were different ages. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't like no one felt superior to anyone. It was just normal behavior.
That's
and
good.
I think that's part of the 80s maybe, or 90s or 90s that is different than now. Like where it's like you feel obligated to hang out with other kids, or you're told to hang out with other kids rather than doing it naturally.
Right.
There's a natural progression of things where you're a child and you're looking at the world and you're looking at different points of view of the world and you're hanging out with different people, different types of people. That shapes your world. But if you were forced into that, then you kind of resent it. You're like resenting that wasn't an option you made.
And especially when some kids are naturally, we find out if you're allowed to be yourself. Some kids are naturally introverts, some kids are naturally extroverts, some of us are somewhere in the middle. We all need socialization, but we need it in different ways. And some of us, we all need to be challenged. Challenge is part of what helps us grow up, and stress is a given. So what we had even before the pandemic was a lot of people trying to figure out ways to help with their stress and avoid their triggers, and there are a lot of people isolating themselves already because they struggled with depression, they struggled with anxiety, and they didn't know how to overcome it.
And some of those people, let's be honest, are not here today because of the pandemic, because they weren't given an option of, finding help. They weren't able to, so they succumbed to that illness. That happened on a massive scale. It went up, it skyrocketed.
Yeah, I've looked for those numbers and I haven't found a lot of reliable information on that.
The press doesn't want to discuss it.
It's really sad, but I do know of. I know of secondhand, but I know of suicides that have happened in this last season.
There are mental health professionals that will divulge that information, but they can't give you the exact numbers. But they will say that. That is the case. And sex abuse and child abuse and all of that has probably gone up as well.
Well, yes. I think that anytime, some of us, I tend to thrive on change and I enjoy it. Even if, even if, that kind of we're all in this together mantra is a little stupid, because it's like we still have wild differences among our society, and that's in many ways as it should be. We were not meant to be the same. I don't think we're meant to each have the same amount of resources, or to look the same, or to think the same. And, really good communication, good, kind communication is something that used to be taught in school. It was being very polite etiquette, so I really commend those parents who are being very disciplined about screen time, like you said.
Yes.
And about fostering interaction, at the very least fostering empathy, and just saying, this person looks different from you, or yes, this person, I know they think this about that, or whatever. They want to wear a mask, they don't want to wear a mask, but can you understand why that person might feel that way?
Yeah.
And are you willing to suffer some discomfort yourself, whether it means putting it on or taking it off, for the sake of the other person, to show that you care about them. And that's why I'm willing to wear a mask, also because I don't really feel like having to throw a fit every time I go to the grocery store, because it's not worth it, and the security guards would drag me away. But, but other than that, I mean, out in public on the street, I'm not going to wear a mask every minute.
I think that's insane.
I think it's completely insane. But if I sense that a person coming down the street is going to be really scared of me, I may put it on for a minute just to try to make them feel better, especially if I'm about to step on an elevator with them or something like that, because I want to make friends. I want to be like, hey, I come in peace. And if you are struggling with a crisis, and if you have a mental health problem, I don't know that just from looking at you. And God knows I suffer with my own forms, of anxiety from time to time, which is exacerbated when I feel like another person is mad at me or dislikes me for no reason, which is what is happening a lot these days.
Well,
not people being mad at me, but people being mad at each other, and people being, really scared of, oh, you're a Trump supporter. I know somebody whose, own daughter was like, I want to know how you're voting, because if you're voting this way, I can no longer associate with you. Well, she said, it's none of your business how I'm voting. So, but it's like, you better love and accept me. I'm your mother.
We used to, not advertise that. It used to be like a personal decision whether you were going to vote at all, and who you were going to vote for. I'm not going to tell you who I voted for, in the election for, the Superior Court. Who gives a shit? Why do you care who I voted for the president, which is literally the same position. They have the same amount of power. It's all, dependent on corporations and the deep state and everything. What happens? Superior Court, even the courts are fucked up. I just censored myself. Fucked up because they don't decide anything. There's people behind the scenes judging what's going on.
I mean, I was going to bring up the courts earlier, and I'm glad you did, because it's at least we still have that appeal system in place right now. And there are people that have a not rogue, but individuality. I mean, if you look at Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or there are a lot of people that were willing to stand out and be different in this planet. And we're not all the same. We're not all the same. And not everyone is controlled. I don't think that everyone is controlled by some corporation.
And by the way, I'm not saying that everyone is. I'm saying locally, I doubt that the courts are the least corrupt thing in the world.
Los Angeles, I mean, right now, as we're sitting here in the heart of Hollywood, California, this is where we're podcasting to you from. I think that we're living in one of the worst cities to be in, government-wise.
Oh my gosh.
It doesn't mean that there aren't I think there are some really great city council members. I think there are some people, I
don't think they can change the way that they want to, which is really sad.
It is sad, but they are doing some great things. There's a lot of people really working to help the vulnerable in Los Angeles.
I did read a bunch of materials when I was voting yesterday for spoiler alert, giant meteor, and across the board, just everybody. Every
Again,
time I can write it.
I think every time you
it
say
in.
that, you actually might be pulling a giant meteor a little closer because that's the power that
There was a
language
meteor.
actually has.
There was a meteor in Mexico last night that was trending on Twitter, meteorito, and I got like a video of it from one of these accounts in Spanish. And it was beautiful. It was like green, and it was like shooting across the sky. It was. They are beautiful. You can't.
They're
the most beautiful presidential
Oblivion
candidate.
Oblivion is not our goal here.
I mean, it might be the end game though, because
it
like
could be
where
the
is
end
this
of game
going
of some,
otherwise?
well, and that's the real question. I mean, that's the
They're already,
metaphysical question.
you know, gathering up all of our DNA and everything, like through the 23andMe and the Google people. Like they're all like, and I have, you know, evidence of that. I'm not just speaking out of my ass again, but like I ever do. But I actually have evidence of this. I'm not just mentioning, like the Selfish Ledger is what it's called. You may have heard of it, which was a leaked a video that was shown to workers from Google about, you know, gathering up all of these records and DNA and everything from all these people. Which, it's funny, there's actually a connection between Google and 23andMe. I don't want to get into it, but like there's like one of them is, Susan is like, her sister, I think, is married to one of the guys from Google. It's very weird. But anyway, there's always a connection. But what I'm saying is,
Google's a big company. There's lots of, I mean, there's a million connections that we all have to one another.
But I'm just saying that like they want to, that what they have said in the video is that it's for your grandchildren, like, you know, great-grandchildren, to know how you lived. They have to see your social media, they have to see your DNA, and all of this stuff. Like, all of these parts of you will be for the next generation, the next generation. There's a time capsule, basically. It's all legit. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Just give it to us. Like, give us your data. Like, that's what it's all about.
Well, yeah, I mean, every day there's a new, you know, company or emailing list or something else that wants to, you know, or my own phone, the apps in my own phone are asking me to give permission to one app to see all my photos and all my contacts and all that stuff.
And I say, hell to the no.
Right. Do you
I
really
don't
want
do
that? Well, and that's the thing is like, you know, I was really, I mean.
Oh, this plane. Go away.
For years and years, we all went without cell phones and, you know, don't forget, there was a time before computers, and that time was in many ways a good time for America. So
we had actual people computing. That's what computers were.
Right.
They were people.
Used their brains to figure
and now they're
things
not
out.
people, which is what we're going to have to deal with because we won't be people. Eventually, we'll be robots.
Well, no, because we're not going to.
Well,
let
that's
that
the plan.
happen.
I'm just saying. Like,
some people are planning that stuff, but the thing is, I mean, when you ask what the real end game is, you know, what is our deepest fear? Remember, do you know this quote? Our deepest fear is not that we are powerless, is that we're powerful beyond measure. Have you read that quote?
I've heard it.
I don't remember who actually said it, and I don't know if it's been being correctly attributed, but the real knowing what it is to be human in some ways is to know what it means to be divine, because we were made in God's image, which means that we have a really powerful... Allegedly, yes. It is yours to accept or deny. There's a counter story, which is that you are basically just a blob of cells that sort of out of nowhere suddenly acquired consciousness billions of years ago and were cogent.
Those aren't the only stories. There are many stories.
There are many different ways to tell the story, or the myth, or however you choose. But the question is, do you, Elle, and do I, Betsy, have a place in creating the future? And we certainly do. We certainly have a place in saying, I'm not going to allow this to be the future for my life and not for my children and my children's children or my friends' children. And, you know, that's what people who have been trying to fight climate change have been saying for decades is we have a planet that we need to preserve so that our generations, you know, future can enjoy it. And then we have people who are so mad and and will refuse and hate the idea that we are affecting the climate, so then they just get angry at the climate changers, which doesn't help anything. And it's like,
well, yeah, there's got to be two opposing positions. That's the problem. Like, that's the rub. Like, divide and conquer. That's
Well,
how they
and
rule.
that's not-
And then they play both sides. Of
That's
course.
not the divine path. If you ask me, most of the time there's a middle way, right? Like, I know that I'm a consumer. I know that I cannot probably, although some people have achieved it, I can probably not achieve Jesus. I cannot achieve
No one
Jesus.
can achieve
I'm not
Jesus
Jesus. I
status.
can certainly not achieve that. I cannot achieve...
I mean, unless you're a magician.
No. God, no. I cannot achieve a zero waste lifestyle no matter what I do.
None of us can. That's what people don't
Our
wanna
human body is
look
designed
at.
to eliminate waste. Although,
and carbon is
yeah.
not inherently bad either, which is not something that
Karma?
people... Carbon is not inherently bad.
Right.
Like,
It's
like
an
that's
element.
not the
It's
enemy
an element.
either.
It's just part of the water we swim in. Again,
It's
we
a thing.
have these resources to work with, which I believe were given to us.
I think
by
the
God.
hazardous waste is more of an issue than anything, that the corporations...
What about technology waste? P.S. I mean,
Yeah.
the corporations who are creating devices that only last a certain amount of time before
Obsolete.
you have to buy, and then
Planned
you're wasting
obsolescence.
all of this stuff. I mean, it's terrible.
I
Especially,
can't even get rid of it because when I watched the documentary about what happens when your shit goes to like Africa and like these little kids end up having to be exposed to these chemicals and these products that they like disassemble so that they can sell them to a store. You know, like I can't even I don't even feel comfortable getting rid of my fan that doesn't work or getting rid of my printer that doesn't work, and I just leave it here for however long until we get this shit figured out. And then for a while, all the recycling was going to China, and then China was like, we don't want your recycling. And then where is it now? In a landfill, of course. Like the recycling isn't even going anywhere. Like that you get rid of unless you use
I've
it.
heard that. I mean, eventually, I guess even plastic eventually
It just makes you feel good.
decomposes.
If it makes you feel good, just do it and then pay the price for it. 10 cents a bag.
Okay, what about okay, agreed. But there are, for example, they've been able to compress garbage to create like plastic bricks to make houses and
That's
stuff.
good.
So we are finding ways to climb our way out of that tunnel. We're not certainly channeling all of our
plastic thing
resources
started
into that.
Not even that long ago, like less than 50 years ago, I believe.
Yeah.
Is when we got really plastic
Yeah.
with shit.
Mm-hmm.
So we had like bottles and stuff, like for milk and whatnot.
We used to use glass.
Yeah.
We used to use
And then
glass.
it broke, and then we're like, shit. Then the corporations were like, well,
Well-
we can't make a profit, so we need to like make it to where it's durable, to where it lasts a long time. Don't worry about what's in it. Don't worry about those chemicals. Just give it to the public.
Yeah.
They'll take it. They'll take DDT. They'll take GMOs. They'll take all of this other shit.
We did a lot of
Heroin.
things without caring. And in this age, in the industrial age, manufacturing really got out of hand.
And going back to the medical profession, I just want to interject
Yeah.
real quick. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
That they recommended smoking back in the day. What the fuck? Why are we looking to medical professionals when they didn't even get smoking right?
Well, okay,
Which was
and that's
bought off
over
by
time.
the tobacco industry,
Over
which is
time.
now
It's
bought off by
interesting
the
you bring this up,
pharmaceutical industry.
because I was telling you earlier how I found a copy of the movie Thank You for Smoking, the DVD
See?
at Goodwill.
Good segue.
We watched it. Yeah, no, I'm happy to have you change the subject. We watched it. So I watched that movie again recently, Thank You for Smoking, which has Aaron Eckhart in it playing a marketing exec. He's basically he's PR. He's PR for the tobacco industry. And he goes to visit, spoiler alert or whatever, not really, but the Marlboro Man, who was the spokesperson for and now is dying from lung cancer, who says, P.S. I didn't even smoke Marlboros, by the way. I smoked another brand.
Uh-huh.
But, Aaron Eckhart's character coaches him on, they're like, we want to give you a bunch of money, so that you'll be quiet. And he's like, and if I were you, I would do this. Instead of being quiet, I would, give it all up and, make a big scene in the media about it and stuff. Well, then he drives away later. He has his son with him, and his son says, how'd you know that he was going to take the money? And he's like, they always take the money. Well, because that's for him and his family. At the end of the day, he's going to protect himself and his family. And I think that that's a real part of this story, and Aaron Eckhart and his son in that story, it's like he's divorced. He only sees his son part of the time. He takes his son out and is teaching his son about life and how to win an argument a lot of times, because he goes on TV shows and he's arguing for tobacco, and he's doing this stuff where he, and he even says towards the end, and he's giving testimony, I think in a like a Senate hearing or something like that, and he says, that he would, buy his son a pack of cigarettes at 18, or give his son a cigarette, light his first cigarette, if his son wants to smoke when he turns 18, because that's his legal right. Well, okay, but is that what you want for your son? No, nobody really wants to see their son dying from lung cancer or putting that kind of toxin in their body. Unless you really don't care, or you're evil, and those people do exist. And, I'm not here to look at about the one person or the other and say on balance this person is evil. I rarely do that, because that's not how I'm supposed to live, and it's not. People can make new choices and their hearts can change. But at the same time, I don't know what I'm getting at, but I'm just saying, as far as destruction, there's destruction and creation in this life. Mm-hmm. We know that. And are you going to choose to believe that creation is still possible, instead of looking at this doomsday scenario and saying we're all screwed? I think that creation is still happening, and it's still positive, and there's a lot of good things going on. I think that the doomsday scenario, since, the day that we built the atom bomb, we knew that we could destroy the whole planet ourselves. So that's been on the table for a while, but it's not inevitable. Somehow generations have lived and died, since that happened. So, and I also think that it's a benevolent universe, and because I believe that, then I believe there's a lot of hope for humanity. If you choose to accept it, if you choose to live in the hope of humanity, which is God himself, it doesn't matter, because there are lots of other planets and galaxies, and we don't know where we might go next.
And fuck that place up.
Well, but the thing is...
But it'll be the rich people who go first.
But the thing is, humanity is valuable. That's what we...
They'll escape there. They'll escape to Mars. All the rich people who fuck everything up and get all our money. We'll take our money and go to Mars and leave us to die. That's what they'll do.
Mars is not the hope of our generation.
Or Venus, wherever they want to freak
Mars is not the hope of our generation. For some very rich people, yes.
Hey, what if it's Pluto this whole time? What if Pluto had life? And it's like, you dipshits. You didn't call me a planet. Fuck off.
There are lots of surprises ahead. They're not all bad surprises. They're not all bad surprises. The new technology that could be invented tomorrow to help us get plastic, poof, we have something better than plastic. Poof, we can decompose plastic. We just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
But, my favorite philosopher, George Carlin, said...
Yes.
The planet will be fine without us. People are worried about saving the planet.
That's
the planet always self-corrects.
We have an ecosystem.
Exactly. It will always do whatever it's going to do naturally without us. And it'll be better off without us destroying.
But the Earth was not created to just live by itself. It was created for
we don't know that. That's a selfish
Some of
thought.
Us believe
That's
that.
And
it's not selfish. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that we don't have a responsibility to know how connected we are, and that we need to live in symbiosis with the land and the animals and everything that we walk among and enjoy that gives us life. It means that we matter.
But the problem
is we shouldn't just self-annihilate, is what I'm trying to say. The human race isn't bad to the point that...
They have a history of doing that. They have a history of attacking each other.
We have not destroyed the entire human race.
And if we can't even figure shit out with each other, how are we going to figure things out with the planet that we live off of, that we are able to live because of? Because
human Earth life is just the beginning of a longer eternal life. that humanity
Maybe
has.
the dinosaurs will come back. They'll be like, all right, y'all, you get out of here. We're going to take over again.
Listen, there's nothing that would surprise me at this point, and I really believe...
Do you believe in extraterrestrials? Like, they're actually going to find extraterrestrial... Not just microscopic bacteria, which is obviously out there.
I don't know. I think there's a good case to be made that there are many beings, both seen and unseen, both on this planet and elsewhere.
Do you believe in, like, this is getting into it, like interdimensional beings? Like
Yeah.
beings that could be from a different dimension or different universe,
Yes.
whatever.
Well, we already
into
know
another...
there's a visible spectrum and an invisible spectrum, right? Adding dimensions is just sort of adding another layer to that, sort of like going, oh, there could be more, and there could be more, and there could be
maybe there's
more.
like a non-linear timeline as well that we don't even know about.
Well, yes, there's no question in my mind that there is in some way a non-linear timeline. And that's something that I've been talking to people a lot about, especially in my book group and stuff lately. And that's a big, if you are the kind of person that subscribes to Buddhism, Hinduism, you know, there's a lot of like circular, the yin yang is popular for a reason because it's sort of like, well, time is eternal. What has been will always be. We need all of it. And so Christianity is very unique in that it assigns a linear timeline to the earth. And it says, no, Jesus appeared at a point in history that was pre-foretold. And before that, there was a certain set number of years for humanity. And there's a certain set number of years. We don't know how long it is. But at a certain point, after certain things are established, Jesus will return at a certain timeline. And then there's going to be this, that, and the other. And there's a lot of stuff in Scripture about there being a real change on the earth, as well as in other dimensions of what's going on.
But what's interesting about that is that I've heard, like, in the past, and not so much in the present, but, like, that the different interpretations of, like, for example, like, he built the world in 7 days or whatever, 6 days, and then he rested. But, like, how long was a day back then? We don't know. We don't know the length of the time periods within that.
And within Christianity, there is a wide spectrum of, if you ask a million people, you get a million slightly different ideas.
Interpretation.
Right. Well, because but we have to understand, some people have scientific sort of minds and are more rational thinkers, and other people don't really care about it one way or the other. And some people, you know, really like have left their faith because they can't reconcile science and what they were told, you know, in the church when they were growing up or what they read. And they've never been able to make out any sense of it. But there is one scripture that says that to God, a day is the same as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is the same as a day. And that's why a lot of people will then attach that to that 6-day creation and go, well, it took him 6,000 years to create. Well, that doesn't really help us in you know, comparing, you know, the billions of years of evolution that we say they were to like a 6-day creation, because then it just gives us 12,000 years instead of 6, right? But there's this, you know, well, was this literal or figurative? So more liberal strains of thought in Christianity say, well, just don't take that literally. That was the myth that started Christianity. Maybe there was no real Adam and Eve. And, you know, and then they'll say, and maybe there was no real Job, and maybe there was no real Jonah, and maybe these are all just stories.
Real Jesus Cristo. I mean, we don't know at that point.
And so, exactly, and there's a lot of people both inside and outside the church. Well, not inside the church, but I don't think that you would stick around the church if you don't think that Jesus really existed. Okay.
It would.
That would
be really weird.
It would be really weird, but
just to hang out.
You're not the first person who has said to me even recently, well, it's a really great story and maybe it even happened. Well, does it matter whether it happened or not? I think it really matters whether it really happened or not. I think there's a lot of documentation that it did happen.
I think it also matters that we consider the fact that there were I don't know if it was thousands of years. I think so. That there were interpretations of this text, like, and language translations and everything. Things can get lost in translation and become something totally different, like telephone. Like,
sure,
you just get a different message every time. So I think it's best if people of today would view it as a fable. I know that sounds a little, But, that's all you can view it as, being so disconnected from the original text.
You need to do historical research instead of just saying it's
Go
a fable.
with evidence.
Go with the evidence, because there is a lot of evidence, and I recommend Josh
But don't
McDowell.
just look at all of the different sayings that people,
No, I'm
point
talking
out.
about historical research.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Out-
It's do the research. Don't just buy what you're told in the text.
Preponderance of evidence.
From different
Go
people.
on your own journey. Go to Jerusalem. But don't forget that there is an aspect of this that many people's entire lives have been completely changed by the man that they called Jesus Christ. People have gone from addiction to being healed. People have been healed from cancer. People have been saved from very traumatic experiences and really recovered completely. And I've met people that I can't believe when they tell me some of the crap that they've been through, because after they've come to know God, their lives have been completely transformed. And it doesn't mean that you can't ever get healthy without believing in Jesus. It just means that, to me, there's an attachment to a real power and authority that was given to Jesus Christ himself that we also have access to. But you have a different kind of access to it in the church. And I don't mean just by going to church, but I mean by calling yourself a follower of Christ and truly endeavoring to practice what Christ practiced.
But in that same regard, I feel like there are many other religions like Islam and Buddhism that feel very closely connected to their great people in their books.
Yes.
And so there's that sense of community within all religious faiths that exists inherently.
There can be a sense of community inherent.
Or they can feel that they are affected by certain things.
Sure.
But how much of that is their interpretation of something rather than the actuality of something happening?
Well, and that's what everybody has to decide for themselves. There's many people who have left one faith to follow another at some point in their lives, or gone from, faith to no faith, or no faith to faith.
People swear by Scientology nowadays, and that's clearly a multi-level marketing scheme.
Well, and many people hit on something that seems to work for them for a time. And then after a certain amount of time, it seems to no longer work for them. Now, I think that each of us are on a journey. Mm-hmm. I have attended many different churches in my life, and
I've attended a few.
Yeah,
as a
they're
child.
not all the same, right?
Mm-mm.
The people are not all the same. They're not run the same way. And whether you felt loved or cared for in that church is probably, to me, the most important part of actually being there. Not, just what they teach, whether they teach what you think are the right things or not. It's whether, do you feel loved and cared for? Is it a place where you can grow and where you feel like you can contribute? Is it, a functioning society in a way, sort of like a microcosm of what society should be? And in fact, my aunt said to me once that, she studied anthropology, and that, she thought the church had served a function in society that it no longer needed, because now we had figured out how to create community apart from church. Mm-hmm. And I disagree with that to a certain extent, because I think there is power in the name of Jesus that is, again, I think that Jesus' name is higher than any other name. And we don't have that much time left in our hour and a half to talk about why. And
Let's talk about Jesus for the last 15 minutes.
We can, but I also want to talk about the Tiny House for Lita project.
Let's talk about the initiative that you're doing with the tiny houses.
I love Jesus. I love talking about him all day.
I love him too. I love talking about people I don't know.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah. It's fun. Lita, so my friend Lita, who I don't think you've met her yet either.
No.
She also loves Jesus.
Yay!
And she and I
but this
became...
isn't a Jesus-y kind of organization, though.
It's an organization... Jesus wanted people to be housed and fed and cared for, and he commanded his followers. He said, and actually this is a debate that I got into on Facebook the other day, believe it or not, a little bit. I only said one thing, but,
That's a debate.
Jesus said in a scripture, in one of the Gospels, I think it was Matthew, that you can't just... come up to somebody that you see suffering on the street and say, be blessed, be well fed. You actually need to feed the person. If you care, you're going to do something.
To fish, and they'll
That is not recorded that Jesus said that, okay? Although I don't think that that's a bad thing to say. Just be aware.
But that is the best way, is like teaching them how to be self-sufficient.
Yes, but first, how are they going to learn how to do anything if they're still hungry? It's very hard to learn when you're starving. So first, you might need to give the person, a meal.
Obviously, give them meals.
Yes.
Not money.
This is purely about trying to help people find shelter. And have you heard of a movie called Nomad Land?
No.
There's a new movie out called Nomad Land with Frances McDormand that I just saw that apparently is getting all kinds of Oscar buzz and whatnot. My friend...
Those weren't canceled this year?
Well...
Next year?
They're probably
going to get canceled.
I'm not sure if it's an advanced screening of a 2021 film or if it's, a 2020 screening.
I meant the Oscars, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, but I know, but it matters what year this movie would fall in. But it's a movie about a woman who has been working for Amazon seasonally. She cannot continue to work for Amazon. And she has, she basically, is living in like camper communities. And you see how hard it's been for her. Like she used to have a different life, but she lost her husband, other things happened. And so she's become very independent minded. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people who have chosen to live that kind of a life in a small home for whatever reason. And the reason that I thought of creating a Tiny House for Lita project is that my friend Lita has a lung condition that makes respiratory problems very common when she lives in any kind of shared housing thing. So if she was in, it looks like she may be housed in low-income senior housing soon in Oklahoma. And it may last for about a year. But if someone comes around smoking or someone comes around spraying chemicals or something, she has an attack. She has a very hard time breathing. So something like a tiny house where she could control the air quality, at least inside it, if not outside it. And probably something on wheels, that could be moved if needed. Her own home. Lita is an older lady. She's in her 60s. And we were roommates for a while back in 2013 and early 2014 for, can't remember if it was 2 months or 3 or 4. Lita might remember better. She couldn't live with us very long for financial and health reasons. And I think that if Jesus wants anything from us, he wants us to care for each other. That's, I'm not saying that just because I love Jesus. I'm saying it because there is a real misunderstanding right now in our society of who Jesus was, especially the way that he's being represented sometimes on social media, which I think is completely unfair. And you can't care about humanity unless you're willing to put yourself next to a person in need and somehow provide for them. So I'm running a fundraising campaign. I think by the time you post this, it might be already over, but it's an ongoing fundraising campaign to raise $10,000 to buy a tiny house for Lita. After we raise $10,000 for the tiny house, there'll be another recipient, and we'll just keep building tiny houses for as long as I am able to do so. And we have a board that's just getting started. Matt Saul is on our board. I'm asking you to be on our board if you would like to be, and I need a couple more board members so that we can, probably our next leg of fundraising will be for a much smaller amount, so that we can actually incorporate it as a nonprofit, and we won't start that up right away. But, to do everything by the book in the U.S., there's a certain process to become a 501c3, so we'll talk more about that later. But if you are interested in contributing to the Tiny House for Lita project, we're on Instagram under Tiny House 4. 4 is a number, not a letter, not made of letters. And Tiny House 4, FOR, is our Facebook page. So you can also follow me, Betsy Freeman, BETSI, FREEMAN. I'm on all of those things, not forever, but for right now. And I'll send you a button. I've got about 20 or 30 Tiny House for Lita buttons left if you donate $10 or $12 so that I can pay for shipping. And actually, I'm not even reimbursing myself for shipping at this point, but at sometime, I reserve in the future, if I ever need it, I reserve the right to reimburse myself for shipping those things. So we've had a lot of wonderful donors and unexpected donors in the first round, and I'm so grateful to have that savings account started for her. And I hope at some point to have more live interviews with Lita on our social media so that she did post a lot of pictures and biographical information in our Facebook page. So if you want to learn more about her life, she's Native American, I think at least half Cherokee, but don't quote me on the fraction because my memory is not wonderful all the time. She has a degree from Oral Roberts University, which is a Christian university in Oklahoma. She's a singer. She's traveled the world singing. And really, she has 1 million friends who over the years have reached out to support her and help her and take her in at different times. And I know that they would love to see her have a permanent home. And I know it's hard for her to reach out and ask her own friends for help. So I'm hoping that some of them will also hear this and reach out to me. They might not know me yet, but any friend of Lita's is a friend of mine. So.
Well, we're about to wrap it up. I think we got a lot of good topics in there. Heavy topics, but
we did. We've got like 5 minutes, right? We could talk about journalism or medical professional stuff more. What do you want to talk about? What
I've seen lately, getting onto the political thing, is like a lot of journalists have gone the way of bloggers. Like they turned into bloggers because like you have a degree. Like
right.
You're not on the same level as someone at BuzzFeed. No offense to BuzzFeed, I guess, but like
right. I
who
hope
cares?
not.
But like, why are you responding like a child to certain posts about the president, about this and that and the other, and responding in such a biased way to things on social media and getting into arguments with people? Like, I just don't understand our journalists actually getting into arguments with people based on politics is hilarious to me, actually. That they have gotten so tedious, it's like suffering, that they can't even do their jobs right. Like, well, that's why there's fake news. That's why he's
getting
attacking
back to trusted sources. I mean, the reason that you and I have been friends for 10 years, right? I think that this year is the 10-year anniversary of our friendship. I'm pretty sure that
I had been in LA for over 10 years now.
Yeah, I think 11 years. I think you had been in town a year when you and I became friends. Mm-hmm. So, over 10 years, we've developed a friendship where we know that we can trust each other to a certain extent, right? And I think the same is true with any source. You should develop trust with any source of information over time. Find out. And the same is true with your government officials. I have a good friend running for office that I'm supporting, and we've been friends for 8 or 9 years, and she's always been very trustworthy. We've never, lived together or we don't know everything about each other because we've lived life, and that's true of any politician or, anyone who wants your vote right now. Look at the totality of their life. Look at what they're really doing with their life. Are they, you can tell whether a person actually cares. I really think if you listen to them long enough and look in their eyes, you can tell whether a person actually cares about humanity or not. And that's why I don't vote one party. I think that some people still have functioning consciences, and some people really very much don't. They're not checking in with their conscience anymore.
They have too much ego.
Ego is a problem.
Big
social, social status is a problem.
Ego stroking on social media is, I think, a big issue. Especially with celebrities. My gosh, they think they're the be-all, end-all. Like, it's kind of funny. It's like, vote for this guy just because I said so. Well, no, because who are you to me?
But they have a certain amount of influence. And that's the truth. As long as they have all those followers.
There's idol worship.
They'll still continue unless they're idol worship. Unless they're brought to a new level. I'm not here to humble anybody, but I think it's my job to be humbled. And to be humble. But I don't... that's a very tricky paradox.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of us actually achieve it, and I don't know. I can certainly say about other people, and I always mean it as a compliment. Mm-hmm. But it's not a virtue. It's not considered to be a virtue in society for the most part. So that's a character issue.
Yeah. And then the media feeds into it and exalts these celebrities and says that their voice matters. But yours, if you want to speak out, you're not allowed to, because we're going to censor what you say. We're going to make sure you can't say COVID-19 in a video on YouTube, because that's not allowed unless you're the WHO approved person.
Well, a really good celebrity, going back to Thank You for Smoking, a really great celebrity will bring, they bring a little boy who's suffering from cancer onto one of the shows. Now, that's a ploy, right? It's a ploy. They talk about it behind, later on, oh, what did you do with this cancer boy, and it's horrible. It's a gimmick, right? So any politician could do that, try to bring somebody who seems vulnerable or suffering on stage and say, I'm helping this person. I want this person to speak. But
Trump has done, I would just want to point out that Trump's done that many times, had vulnerable people on stage and exploited them in various ways, including children. I think children, maybe not. But he uses people to their ends, just like a good politician will. So people who say that he's an outsider, he's not a politician, he is a politician. He plays by the same book. They're all in the same club. They all play golf together. And you know what? I guess if they lose, they get called mini Mike Bloomberg. I don't know. But
you have to, I think, check in with your own heart on all of this stuff and ask yourself what machine you were part of, if you were part of a machine. And if you, if you really see what is life-giving and what is not. Mm-hmm. And, you can't go wrong by eating your vegetables. Maybe we should just end on that note.
And fruits. And, take your vitamins. Vitamin D is very important. And immune support is important.
Get some sunshine. Put some sunscreen on and then get some sunshine.
I use multivitamins gummies, but that's all I can do because I've never been able to swallow correctly. So I use that, and I get my vitamin D3 from fruits, I think, and plants, whatever. Some kind of plant. So, lichen or something. I can't remember. But there are ways to make sure that you're as healthy as possible. And also being exposed to dirt is good to build up your immune system. And that's another reason that this mask initiative and this initiative to protect yourself from the environment, like natural things in the environment, is going to be detrimental to our health ultimately, because we will not have the same immune system that we had in 1990s and 2000s. So be careful, be safe. Think for yourself, and thank you so much for listening to this all new episode out of nowhere. I'm sorry, guys, but it was supposed to happen last month, but something happened that
is this number 47
that we weren't able to do it. But we are very grateful for everyone listening. Thank you so much, and you do donate if you can to that initiative. It's a really good initiative that's actually trying to benefit society. So.
Thank you. Tiny House for Lita. Yes. Feel free to ask us for more questions if you have more questions.
And I'll leave more information in the show notes as well, and all the links to the shit that we mentioned.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Elle. This has been a great
Thank you for coming in person. It's so nice to have a show with someone in real life. It's been so long since we've had a non-phone voice. I'm so happy.
It's so sad.
I haven't seen people for 6 months. It's insane, except my roommate, of course. But, we live together, so that's different. But, it is interesting to see that life is still happening around us, and we need to embrace it. Yes. Embrace life. Fuck death.
And I'll send more guests over to you, too, who might be in this area that you could actually speak to.
Good.
All right.
Make sure they're kind of funny, because we need to lighten it up next time.
Okay.
All right.
So noted.
Thank you so much for joining us, Betsy, and thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.